That's my fault. Folded is what's my fault. Oh, perfect. Tomorrow's here. I lit a candle last night. There must be some other subjects here tonight. It's tonight, tomorrow, no? Yeah, but I last night. So this is putting on the shoe. Okay, so we should have enough copies here if anyone needs. Huh? They take care of it, yeah, this guy. Okay, so first of all, the breakfast this morning is being sponsored anonymously, the Makava, the art site of Heilige Kamarna, tonight and tomorrow. And tomorrow the Shama should be Eretz Yisroel for the anonymous sponsor for all Kehila, all Klal Yisrael. It's a big schos. Okay, so last week we went back into Sefer Yehoshua. So you're talking about the Maisa of the 12 stones. That's what we were talking about last week. So just Bekitzer, again, there's, like I mentioned last week, there's different shittas in the Rishonim and the Mefarshim exactly how like the story unfolded. But at least last week, what we went with was the approach of the Malbim. So just Bekitzer Nimratz. The way the Malbim explains it is that this was the process, and it's all based on Psukim in Parshas Kisavai that Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael this mitzvah. Although in Kisavai it's not so clear, exactly how it's supposed to be. But this is the process that how it was fulfilled. Again, according to the Malbim and Sefer Yehoshua. So Klal Yisrael is crossing the Yarden. And step one, they find 12 stones representing the Jewish people, the 12 Shvatim, in the Yarden itself. They take the stones out, and that's step one, okay? Step two is that when they eventually conquer the city of Yerichai, and they conquer the city of Ai, so now they find themselves by the location, by the place of two mountains, Har Gerizim and Har Evel. And that's when step two of the mitzvah kicks in, as the pasuk says in Parshas Kisavai, to take those stones that you took from the Yarden, erect them by Har Gerizim and Har Evel, by that area, and turn the 12 stones to do two things with them. Turn them into a Mizbeach. So, and then on the Mizbeach sacrifice karbanis, oilus and shlam, and different karbanis. And then the final step is then turn those stones from Mizbeach. I guess they're still Mizbeach, but turn them from Mizbeach as well to a Sefer Torah, pretty much. Pasuk says, cover them with lime, and write on them the words of Torah, be'er heitiv, in a clear manner. That's what it says in Parshas Kisavai. So that's what we're going to. So last week we talked about this inyan of Bechla with the 12 stones and sort of the 12 stones in stage one representing Klal Yisrael, and then I guess Klal Yisrael turning into a Mizbeach and a Sefer Torah. That's really what we spoke about last week. But let's focus on today. What we're going to talk about is this inyan of how these stones how the Torah was written on these stones, and its significance. The Er Hativ in a clear way. But just to get back into it, if you take a look at Maramokah number 1, so this is a couple psukim from Parshas Kisavai. Like I said, in Parshas Kisavai, that's when the mitzvah of dealing with these stones is mentioned. By the way, Agav, just a little bit on this side, maybe it's not so much on the side, but the Rambam, for example, in Sefer Mitzvahs, so the way the Rambam writes Sefer Mitzvahs is that it's a list of 613, but before the list, he has 14 klalim, 14 shrashim, 14 principles of conceptual ideas of how to determine whether something is one of the 613 or not. So in Klal Gimel, the third, I think it's the third one, the third principle, the third sharish of the Rambam over there, the Rambam says that any mitzvah which is l'shah, which was temporary, not L'doros, not forever, that's not in 613. 613 has to be mitzvahs, which are forever. So one of the examples that the Rambam gives of a mitzvah, which is only temporary, it was a one-time deal, it's not forever, is erecting these stones. Right? It's not like a mitzvah, an ongoing thing. Every single year we have to do this, or every single day. It was a one-time deal. Now it's interesting because very often, not every single one, but a lot of the Shroshim that the Rambam wrote over there, he's writing them to disagree with an earlier Ma'ina mitzvahs, an earlier authority that counted the mitzvahs. That's the Bahag. The Bahag is one of the Gainim, one of the early Svarim to count the 613, and he in fact counts erecting these stones as a mitzvah. It's one of the 613 to erect the stones as a mitzvah, which is a pella. I mean, the logic of the Rambam that mitzvahs, that to be 613 it should be forever, that's pretty sound. So the Ramban, this is sort of on the side, but it's good to know. The Ramban over there on the Rambam tries to defend the Bahag, and he says, of course, the Bahag agrees in principle that only mitzvahs which are forever should be counted in 613. So why does he count any of these stones? So he says that the sheet of the Bahag is, even if the act of the mitzvah is a one-time deal, but if the effect of the mitzvah is forever, that's going to be 613. And says the Ramban, although the mitzvah of erecting these stones was a one-time deal, so we don't have to continuously do them, but the effect of having them and what they represent and what they reply lies, that is taka forever, and that's what's counted as a mitzvah. Now it's interesting, the Ramban doesn't really tell us what was the Pol Yaitze, like what was the accomplishment of these stones that is forever. If it's having a monument to remind us of the miracles, the monument is not forever. We don't know what these stones are. So to say that that's an ongoing thing, it's a little bit difficult. But maybe after today we'll be able to understand a little bit more in Pneumius what is the everlasting effect of these stones. But Kapanim, that's the Maisa. These 12 stones turn to Mizbeach, and then the Torah is written on them. Okay, so take a look at Maramakim 1 just to get back into it. Again, from Parshas Kisav, says Moshe, the day that you cross over the Yarden, the day to the land that Hashem is going to give you, you should erect these big stones, cover them with lime, and you should write on them the words of the Torah when you cross over. Because that's what the Malbim explained. Why does it say the extra word about when you cross over? It just said in the first pasuk, when you cross the Yarden. The answer is the turning the stones into a Sefer Torah. That was later. That was when they already got to Har Grizim and Har Evel. And so says the pasuk. Now, and this is going to be important for today. Says the pasuk, why should you do this? Why should you write the Sefer Torah on the stones? That it should be a schus for you to conquer Eretz Yisroel. So to conquer Eretz Yisroel, right, in order to be able to conquer and settle land of Eretz Yisrael, Zavas Chol Udvash, says Moshe Rabbeinu, erect these stones and turn them into a Sefer Torah. So that's going to be also important to understand what exactly is the skula, what's the connection between this mitzvah in particular and conquering Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so let's talk about it a little bit practically. What was written on these stones? So again, you don't have all the psukim in front of you in Marmukah number 1, but later on, Moshe Rabbeinu explains that, again, he repeats over that you should write the Torah on these stones, be'er heitev, in a clear manner, in an explicit way. So what was written there, and what does it mean, be'er heitev? What does that mean? So take a look at Marmukah number 2. The Ramban, on Chumash over there, brings down a tradition from the Gainim. And he says like this, Am Rav Avram b'shem Gain. Rav Avram says the name of one of the Gainim. Again, obviously you have this tradition going back. Shekasva aleihem minyan hamitzvahs. So says the Gainim said that what was written on the stones was not all of Chumash. What was written on the stones was a list of the 613. K'may haksuvis b'halachas gedolos binyan hazharas. Similar to what you have in the halachas gedolos, or like I mentioned, the Bahag, the early svarim by the Gainim that were written to list the 613, or like the Rambam, for example, in Sefer Mitzvahs, a list of the 613. That's how it was written on these stones. Now, one thing that is unclear, before I should pick up on this, it's a little bit unclear because the Ramban references specifically the halachas gedolos, that sefer of halachas gedolos, that it was written. The 613 was written on the stones, similar to how it's written in the sefer halachas gedolos. What's unclear is as follows: in the sefer halachas gedolos, in Hazaras, there's a certain style over there. It's not just a list, but it actually all of the 613 is turned into one poem, and it's a poem with that like sort of each line contains within it a hint to a number of mitzvahs, and each line flows into the next. It's mamash a poem. It's a poem, and in that poem there's the hint of the 613. So does the Ramban mamish mean that it was written like as a big poem on these stones, and in the poem there was the 613? Does he mean just a list, and he's just giving that sefer as an example, but not exactly like that sefer is? Unclear, but definitely it wasn't just Bereshis, just the parashas of Chumash. It was a list of 613. Says the Ramban, V'tam be'er heitiv. So what does it then mean when the Torah says that it should be written clearly, explicitly? Rabbi Seinu Amro, so he quotes the Gemara in Saita, Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, b'shivim lashon. That it was a list of 613, true, but that list had to be translated on the stones to all 70 languages. That's what it means, a be'er heitiv. It should be explicit and clear with all the languages. Okay, that's the tzura. That's what you have in these stones, a list of 613, maybe even a poem, unclear, but explained and translated in 70 languages.
There was a room for 70 Lashonis on that stone?
So they were very big. The pasuk has big stones, or it was an ace. Those are the two options, Either B'derech HaTeva or Lamal B'derech HaTeva. By the way, there are other shitas that say that it was all of Chumash written on these stones, and they go out of their way to say that it was an ace. So it sounds like if it was just 613, you could fit that into large stones, but I never tried to write on a stone, so I don't know. But that's the Ramban. Okay, now fine. That's the tzura. That's the inyan. Now let's investigate a little bit pnimius of what's going on over here. Again, the pasuk said that by doing this, we'll be able to conquer Eretz Yisroel. Okay, so we're going to learn some Rabbi Nachman this morning, and we'll see. Again, Rabbi Nachman doesn't address this ma'isa specific with the stones, but there's Torahs in Rabbi Nachman that I think shed light on it. Okay, Marmok number 3. It says, a piece in L'Kut Moran, Chelik Aleph, Siman Lamed Vav. Just go through it, because there's no hakdama that I can give, so we're just gonna read it. V'zo Klal. So Nachman says this is the principle. Ki kol nefesh miYisrael hu mushrash b'shivim nefesh shel Beis Yaakov. We know that Klal Yisrael come to Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is a place that we become a nation, we become a people, and we come to Mitzrayim b'shivim nefesh, 70 souls, right? So you have 3 Avos, the Shvatim. But then when we're moving into an into Klal Yisrael, the most concentrated or essential version of the Jewish people as a nation is Shivim Nefesh. Shivim Nefesh. And then once from Shivim Nefesh, now it turns into 600,000. So says Rabbi Nachman, Ki kol nefesh miYisrael, and every individual Jew, not only are you connected to the 600,000 Yidden, right? The Rizal talks about this, in a number of Shar Gegulim is a major section of it about this, that there's 600,000 root neshamas. All the millions and millions of Yidden that existed in all the generations and continue as Hashem. So there's millions of neshamas, but those neshamas are all branches, twigs, leaves from the major branches, the major roots of Klal Yisrael, which are 600,000. So 600,000 sharshei neshamas, root souls. From those roots come branches and twigs and leaves and so on, all the individual Yidden. So we all ultimately come from 600,000. And so says Rabbi Nachman, but those 600,000 ultimately are rooted in the Shivim Nefesh, in the 70 souls. The Shivim Nefesh shel Beis Yaakov. And like we spoke about last week, and a deeper identity of even the 70 souls of the Jewish people are Mishroshim b'Shivim Panim shel Torah, are rooted in, as Chazal put it, the 70 ways to interpret Torah. Like we spoke about last week, the significance of those stones, 12 stones representing Klal Yisrael, being turned into a Sefer Torah and being turned into a Mizbeach, means at the very root of every single Jew, and B'chlal, the Jewish people, we're rooted in Torah. That's who we are. We're just walking Sefer Torah, walking letters of Torah. So the 70 souls, all the Jewish people essentially are 70 souls, and those 70 souls are rooted in the 70 ways of interpreting Torah. And the purpose of life, like we mentioned last week, is to unravel your Sefer Torah, is to manifest, to reveal your particular portion in Torah and your particular portion in Avodah, right? So that's the stones being turned into a Mizbeach. It means your particular portion in Avodah, Tefillah, and so on. That's who you are. That's our Avodah. So it says Rabbi Nachman like this. But how does a person discover their chelik in Torah or their chelik in Tefillah? So this is this is troubling. But Rabbi Nachman says like this: there's always a balance between good and evil. Shekineged shivim nefesh shel Beis Yaakov, corresponding to the 70 souls of the Jewish people, whose task is to discover the 70 sides of Torah within themselves. Im shivim lashon, there's the opposing force of the 70 languages of the 70 nations. Shekol lashon v'lashon, every single nation of the 70 nations, yesh la mida rob ifnei atzma, they represent a particular obstacle, a particular yetzar, a particular negative trait, something that's the opposite of that aspect in Avodas Hashem. Mash'ein b'chaverta, that the other nation doesn't represent. So there's a certain, for example, let's be one, are there anyone French over here? I don't want to offend anyone, but you're Yidden, so it doesn't make a difference. But it's brought down by the Svarim that the quality of the French language and the French, I'm talking about Goyim, by the Goyim. The French people, they are the embodiment of the Midah of Gaiva. It's the Midah of Gaiva. And so for example, so you'll have one just an example. So if you have, for example, we have one of the 70 nefashos of Beis Yaakov, of the Jewish people. That's a particular category of Yidden, and in their very root of who they are is a particular chelik of Torah that they have to manifest, they have to bring out. But in order to bring that out of them, they have to, as Rabbi Nachman is going to explain, they have to go through a particular gullus that fits with their particular potential. And so the Rebbeinu Shalom, whatever the decision is from the Rebbeinu Shalom, how he understands these things, if that particular chelik of Torah is rooted in in a particular way, so they might have to go through the particular goals of France to bring out their kochas. What's the goals of France? Not just being in the country, but it means a particular that midah of Gaiva, for example, that is represented by that language, and it comes out. And every nation is like that. Every nation is like that. So he says like this. Fine. And because of these negative traits, so the Torah is not being revealed by the Shivim Nefesh properly because of this maniyah, because of this obstacle called the 70 languages that's blocking that Torah from coming from the 70 souls. And when a soul from the Jewish people is put under gullus of the 70 languages, of the 70 nations, hainu, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that you have to literally go from country to country, but it means hainu, in other words, to have to deal with and to break through the negative midas of the 70 nations. So this is the process. So in order for the Torah to come to be discovered from that Jew, they have to, from the Shivim Panim L'Torah, it has to go through the 70 languages. And Rabbi Nachman says an amazing thing. When a neshama is being put in that exile of the 70 languages for it to discover the 70 faces of Torah, which is its root in the Shivim Nefesh, Azai Hiram Shivim Kolin Keiledes, then it also has to daven. It has to call out. It has to call out 70 times as well. So there's tefillah that has to be done to discover the Torah that's all contained, and that it's only found and discovered after breaking through the gullus of the 70 languages. Just like a woman giving birth. That koydem haleda, that before a woman gives birth, he'd say ekes shivim kolim. It's a teaching from the Tikkunei Zayir, whether you're by the hospital and you actually count the amount of it could be it doesn't the physical number is irrelevant. But the Zohar Kadosh says that a woman giving birth calls out 70 times. Kineged Shivim Tevis, corresponding to the 70 words, Shav Mizmar Yancha, the Mizmar Yancha Hashem B'Yam Tzar that we say between Asher and Volotzion. There's 70 words over there. That's why it's brought down as a skula to say that if a woman is giving birth. And without calling out 70 times, it can't happen. The birth is not going to happen. So you have this idea. V'zeu klal. So Rabbi Nachman just sums it all up once again. Shekol nefesh mi Yisrael, that every single Jew, and again, just to clarify one added point, even though every single Jew is coming from one of the 70, but every single Jew within himself also has all 70 within himself. That's how Kedusha works. Everything's inter-included in another. So to a certain degree, there's collectively 70 sides of Torah, and there's 70 souls of the Jewish people, but every Jew has to sort of discover all 70 within yourself. And in order to discover that, you have to go through Gullus. You have to go through a Gullus of the 70 nations. And in order to deal with that Gullus, you have to daven 70 times. That's the process. V'zeu haklal. Rabbi Nachman says this is the principle, Shekol nefesh miYisrael, that every single Jew, Kaidim sheyeshel hisgalus b'Torah v'avoda, before there's a revelation of who that Jew is in terms of Torah and in terms of avoda. In other words, that's exactly like we said last week. That's the representation of the stones. The 12 stones, that's Klal Yisrael, being turned into a mizbeach, that's avoda, and turned into a Sefer Torah, that's called Torah. In order for that to happen, as I menasin u'mitzarfen sanefesh begolus shel shivim lashon, that it has to go through the catharsis, it has to be tested, and and put through that ringer of the golus of 70 nations, 70 languages. Hainu b'tavis seyim, that means they're taivas. Kedela shavram, in order to break through those golusin, v'lavi achar kach les galus, and then come to revelation to who the person is. So that's the call from Rabbi Nachman. Now we're sort of seeing this in the stones, right? In other words, if you can imagine, let's put it this way: this inyan of Rabbi Nachman is describing to us this process that you have 70 souls, you have the Jewish people that they need Geula, they need to come to a place of Geula. What does Geula mean? Geula means a full revelation of who they are, a full manifestation of the 70 sides of Torah, a full manifestation of the 70 sides of Avodah, where everything could be unpackaged. You could do Hagba, everything could be revealed in terms of who the Jewish people are. That's called Geula. That's called Eretz Yisroel. Eretz Yisroel means a place that everyone has their place, and it's Rechavas Yadayim, it's an open territory. Eretz Yisroel means Geula. Geula means the Shivim Nefesh being able to fully express who they are, right? In a nation, in our land, we're able to be who we are. Who are we? Shivim Panim L'Torah, that's who we are. Who are we? Walking Mizbeches, that's who we are. But in order to get to Geula, you have to go through Golus. And what does Golus mean? Golus means being put through the process of dealing with every one of the 70 nations. And so going through every one of the 70 nations means everything that's the opposite of Torah, everything that's the opposite of Avodah, everything that is blocking that side of Torah from being revealed, everything that's blocking the 70 sides of Torah from being revealed, from the 70 sides of Avodah being revealed, the 70 nations block that. So a person has to go through that Golus, Rabbi Nachman says, in order to eventually have that Geula. So comes these stones. So in other words, so the Rabbanu Shalom now is giving us, with this mitzvah of these stones, giving us an unbelievable bracha. Because in the way Rabbi Nachman just set it up, it's the following: that in order to get to Geula, in order to get to Eretz Yisroel, to discover all the Torah and all the Avodah that you are, you have to go through all the difficulties of the 70 nations. We don't want to have to do that. The Rebbeinu doesn't want us to have to do that in an extreme way. So is there a way of sort of conquering Eretz Yisroel in a way that's not as harsh, in a way that's not as difficult? And the answer is yes, and that's what these stones are about. Again, like we said from the very beginning, the pasuk said, the Rebbeinu Shalom said, write on these stones, right, all the mitzvahs of these stones, Laman Hashatavei L'Aretz, in order that you should be able to get to Eretz Yisroel. In other words, what we're going to see now, that contained in this inyan of these stones, is a way to deal. You have to go through the goals of the 70 nations. That's what Rabbi Nachman said. There's no way out of that. But there is a way of dealing, of going through the goals of the 70 nations in a way that's not as harsh, in a way that's not as overwhelming and difficult, to be able to find a path to Eretz Yisroel through the lands of the 70 nations in a way that's not so traumatic. So that's what we're going to try to see from Rabbi Nachman himself, and then we'll see it in the 12 stones. And what it's going to be related to is the following idea. We saw from before that the 12 stones that the Torah was written on, again, the Targum Mitzvahs and so on, it was be'er heitiv. It should be in a clear manner, right? What does it mean in a clear manner? It was written b'shivim lashon. It was written in 70 languages. So already you're seeing that the Rebbeinu Shalom is being Megala side over here. There's a revelation, there's a secret being taught us over here. Is that even the 70 languages themselves, which represent the exile that's blocking the 70 souls from discovering the Torah, even those 70 languages have Torah to them. And so this is what we're going to see in the next piece of Rabbi Nachman of such an idea, is that instead of thinking that in the 70 languages, in the 70 nations, no Torah, no Avodah, nothing, you have to just break through all of that to then get to Eretz Yisroel, to find Torah and to find Avodah, which is an arduous task. To break through it, that's always very, very difficult. But there is an eitzah, there is a mahalach of what? Of getting to Eretz Yisroel and traveling through the 70 nations, but realizing that even the 70 nations that you're traveling through, not so different than Eretz Yisroel. There's also Torah there. So we're gonna see what that means exactly. And by doing so, by thinking in those terms, then the path to Eretz Yisroel is much more clear and much more direct. It's not, you're not going through things, you're not dealing with 70 nations that are mamish, the opposite of Torah and Avodah, and are barren wastelands of emptiness, and then only breaking through all of that, then you get to Eretz Yisroel. There is a path to Eretz Yisroel. There's a path to Eretz Yisroel through the 70 nations, where a person can even discover elements of Eretz Yisroel in the 70 nations. By doing so, then the process of discovering Eretz Yisroel is much more smooth. So, for example, the Gemara says, Chazal say about Shlomo HaMelech, right? Shlomo HaMelech, in his lifetime, Eretz Yisroel was b'milua. It was as good as you're going to get until Mashiach. Chazal say about Shlomo HaMelech that he had a chachma that he would be able to take a piece of soil from Eretz Yisroel, smell it, and I'll be able to tell you, well, based on his understanding, if you follow this piece of land, it'll take you to a particular place in Chutz La'aretz, and over there it's going to be very fertile for this particular type of fruit, this particular type of vegetation. Shlomo HaMelech was able to find the root of everything in Chutz La'aretz in Eretz Yisroel. That's exactly a way, as we're going to see now from Ben Nachman, to alleviate the intensity of this gullus that all 70 souls have to go through to find Eretz Yisrael. Because again, that's the principle. You got to go through the 70 exiles in order to discover the 70 sides of Torah and Avodah that you have locked within you. But that's the process. But if the 70 languages, the 70 exiles are a barren wasteland of Torah and Avodah, that's an arduous task to deal with that and then break through that, and then you get to Eretz Yisroel where you find Torah and Avodah again. But if we can find a path, a route of Eretz Yisroel in Chutz La'aretz, to be able to find a way to Eretz Yisroel, to find Torah and Avodah in the lands of Chutz La'aretz, then you just follow that path to find a more open version and a more clear version of Torah and Eretz Yisroel. So it's not such a dramatic shift from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisroel, and that always makes the process a little bit more simple and easy. And that's exactly what these 12 stones are representing. They represent the Jewish people discovering themselves as Torah and as Avodah. That's called Gul, that's called Eretz Yisroel. But it was also translated in 70 languages. By translating the Torah in 70 languages, it means that there is Torah even in the 70 languages, the 70 nations, and by realizing that, it means that there's an actual path to Eretz Yisroel within Chutz La'aretz, within the 70 nations, and that allows the process of getting to Eretz Yisroel in a much more smooth and direct way. And that's the pasuk says, do this mitzvah, l'ma'an ha'shetava, in order that you should be able to get to Eretz Yisroel easily and conquer the land. So this is what we have to now see the next piece of Marmuk number 4. What does this mean exactly of finding Eretz Yisroel in Chutz La'aretz, or discovering the Torah that's within the 70 languages themselves? So take a look at Marmuk number 4. He quotes again, this is again from Likud Ran Chelik Beis, Siman Ayin Ches. The Gemara. So he quotes the Gemara Psachim, Kuf Yud Ches Siman Aleph. So by the way, everyone follows so far? At least the structure of what we're talking about? Okay. Fine, enough people not there. That's good enough for me. Okay, the Gemara Psachim Kuf Yud Ches Siman Aleph. So the Gemara says in Psachim, he quotes the Gemara like this: Hani Chavav Kil Olam Chazdai Keneged Me. The Gemara asks, we know that we say in Haidu, we say it on Shabbos morning, Hayla Hashem Ki Tov Nim Chazdai B'chulu B'chulu. So it says Kil Olam Chazdai. There's 26 stanzas in that capital Tillim. Kil Olam Chazdai 26 times. Keneged Me. What's the 26 for? So says the Gemara, Keneged Chavav Daris. It corresponds to the 26 generations that existed from the beginning of creation until Har Sinai. And in other words, the background of the Gemara is that Torah is the schus that the world is sustained by through Talmud Torah. So the Gemara is basically asking between the lines, what sustained the world before Har Sinai? What schus did the world have to be sustained? The answer is the chesed of Hashem. It wasn't. We didn't do anything to deserve it. The Rebbeinu Shalom b'chazdai sustained the world for 26 generations. That's the 26 kilo of chazdai. So that's the Gemara Psach. Ki oz, or Rabbi Nachman explains, like, at that point before Har Sinai, like hayishum Torah, there was no Torah. It seems, right? In other words, let's put it in a historical perspective, right? Like until now, we've been talking about the 70 nations in space, right? You have the 70 nations, that's Chutz La'aretz, Then Eretz Yisroel, so the 70 nations Chutz La'aretz means no Torah, right? It's a barren wasteland of Torah and Avodah. And then Eretz Yisroel, that's a place of 70 souls of Klal Yisrael, the 70 sides of Torah, the 70 calls of Tefillah, of Mizmor Yancha Hashem B'Yom Tzara. So Chutz La'aretz, the 70 nations means no Torah. Eretz Yisroel, Klal Yisrael means Torah and Avodah. An historical sense, so on a map of history, so too, post Har Sinai means Torah, Avodah, everything good. And pre Har Sinai means 70 nations. It means Chutz La'aretz, it means no Torah at all. That's what it would seem. Ki sham lo hayu sham Torah. There's no Torah before Har Sinai. The world was just preoccupied with just living physically and settling the world and so on. And Chazal even say this in the Medrash, that Gedoyla Derech Eretz, that to a certain degree, Derech Eretz, in others living, doing business and commerce and so on, is like the Torah's older brother. Shekad Mila Torah, it came before Torah, right? Ki Chavav Dairis, because for those 26 generations, there was no Torah there. So what sustained the world? That's the Gemara Pesachim. It says, through just the kindness of Hashem. That's the simple pshat in the Gemara. It says Rinach like this. But the truth is, although yes, it was with a chesed because no one was actually learning in a tangible sense. But Rinach says, but the truth is, Gam Kaidim Kabbalah Torah, even before the Torah was given. In other words, in that time period that's called the 70 nations, right? Or in a spatial sense, the place that's called the 70 nations of Chutz La'aretz. It must be that Torah was there. It must be Torah was there. It wasn't obvious, it wasn't clear, but it is impossible, says Rabbi Nachman, to say that there was a time or there is a space where there is no Torah. It's impossible. The Torah is forever. So you can't say that Torah only starts at this point. The Torah is forever. Forever means in time, and forever means in space. So it's an impossibility to say that there's a time or there's a space without Torah. So what does the Gemara mean? Rather, it means like this. Az Kaidim an Torah means before Har Sinai. Ha'isa Torah behelam or behester means the Torah was concealed, it was hidden. It wasn't obvious, it wasn't at the forefront. Where was it hidden? So Rabbi Nachman says, Hainuki kol ha-Torah klula b'aseres hadibros. So Rabbi Nachman says like this. All of Torah can be summed up in the 10 Commandments. That's what it's all about. Va'az, before Har Sinai, where the 10 Commandments were said, where were the 10 Commandments then? Az kaidim an Torah before Har Sinai, ha'yayud dibros ne'lamim, b'yud mamaris shebehen nivra ha'olam. The 10 Commandments were hidden within the 10 utterances that the Rabbeinu Shalom used to create the physical world. In other words, the Torah was always there. But before Har Sinai, it was hidden within the world of practical living. In other words, the world of pre-Har Sinai, which is the world of Chutz La'aretz, right? The world of no Torah, the world of the 70 nations. That's not a world without Torah. It's not like you have to go through that, and then you'll discover the 70 sides of Torah, the 70 sides of Avodah. No. The 70 sides of Torah and Avodah, that you will discover when you break through the gullus of the 70 nations, are 70 sides of Torah and Avodah that were always contained in the 70 nations already. And therefore, when you're involved, and when a Jew finds themselves in the gullus of the 70 nations, it's not that that's an empty space of Torah and Avodah. Torah and Avodah is there. And if we could identify and try to connect to the Torah and the Avodah that's hidden within the gullus of the 70 nations, then it's a much more smooth process to then go from there to Har Sinai, or from there to Eretz Yisroel. Because that's, in a certain sense, that's all I was involved in the whole time anyway. It's just a matter of dissecting Galus to find Gula within it, as opposed to breaking through it to find something new. So Menachem explains. Nimsa. Shahaisa kol ha-Torah kula. So all of Torah that was given to Har Sinai was not given then. It was revealed then. There was all kula ne'lemes v'nesteres b'tech yishuv ha'olam shniver b'yud mamaris. It was all contained and hidden in the physical world that was created with the 10 sentences. So now Rabbi Nachman explains. What I mean? Ubakol ha'diburim shel ha'olam. It means that every sentence, every word that's said in the world, not Torah, not davening, stam, two people are talking to each other, having a conversation. Ubakol ha'uvdas, all activities, v'asiyas, and all actions, everything that happens in the world. Hey, a guy is cutting down a tree. Hey, he's over the Shia, whatever the guy's doing. Nothing that seems outwardly religious or outwardly Torah and Avodah. The kulam nelam Torah, it's all Torah. It's all Torah. Any true thought, any conversation that has that any level of truth that a person ever says from their mouth, deep down is divrei Torah. every request that a person ever makes, everything that a person ever wants, deep down is tefillah. Think about it. All of human interaction boils down to two things. Either you're doing something, either you're sharing something with someone else, right? Something that's already there, you're sort of sharing, right? Or you're trying to get something. I mean, that's what it boils down to, right? Either you're trying to get something or you already have it and you're using it. That's pretty much what life is. That's Torah and Tefillah. Every single time a person expresses verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically, that you're looking for something, that you want something, so it might look like that what you're saying is, I want more money, or I want food, or I want a chair, or I just want a vacation, I want to relax, or whatever, you name it. Really, what's going on deep down is that you're davening. The neshama is davening. What's the neshama davening for? It's davening to discover Torah, to discover the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's davening. That's tefillah. That's tefillah. And every time a person has something and you use it, or you try to unpackage it to figure it out, whatever it is, you're trying to figure out how this new machine works, or you're trying to accomplish something in the world, deep down, it's Torah. Deep down, it's Torah. And what your neshama is doing at that time is discovering more Torah within itself. You don't see it, we don't see it. On the surface, we just see a guy who's trying to, just get ahead and work, or kvetching about what he doesn't have. But meanwhile, really what he's doing is learning and davening. That's what it is. And if a person has that mindset, then all of a sudden the gullus that you find yourself in is not such a gullus anymore. Because everything that you're doing, you can find Torah in it and find tefillah in it. And then all of gullus is redefined as not something that you have to break through to then find Torah and Avodah. It was all there. You're just trying to, what are you trying to do in life? You're trying to, just like Menachem says, to make the Torah and Tefillah, which was hidden during in the Gullus of the 70 nations, that it should become revealed. But the truth is that the 70 sides of Torah are contained in the 70 languages. Again, that's in the stones. That the Taryag mitzvahs were translated in 70 languages, indicating that even when you're in Gullus of the 70 languages, it's not a barren wasteland of Torah. Torah is there too. It's just hidden over. And what's your avoid? Your avoid over there is to discover the Torah and the Tefillah that is there. And that's called being able to find the path to Eretz Yisroel, even in Chutz La'aretz. So Nachman says like this: Zeh bechinas haderech shel Eretz Yisroel. This is what it means to find a path to Eretz Yisroel in Chutz La'aretz. Ki iker koyach kedushas Eretz Yisroel, because the main way in which we're able to access and to experience kedushas Eretz Yisroel, ho'dei bechinas koyach ma'asav higel amoy losses lahem nachlas goyin k'may shepirish Rashi apasuk Bereishis. He's reminding us of the first Rashi in Chumash, right? Rashi says in the beginning of Chumash, why did the Rebbeinu Shalom begin Chumash with Bereishis? It should have just started with the 6:13, finished, right? Just start talking about mitzvahs. The answer is, as Rashi says, the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to give us the strength in order to have Eretz Yisroel. And what is the strength to have Eretz Yisroel? So Rashi says, because the Goyim are going to say, you're a bunch of Ganavim, you're a bunch of thieves, who gave you Eretz Yisroel? So we're going to be able to say, no, look in Bereishis. It says Rebbeinu Shalom created the world. And since he created the world, so he created the world, he's in charge. He gave it to you for a certain time, then he gives it to us for another time. In other words, what Rashi's telling us is that Ma'aseh Bereishis contains within it the path to Eretz Yisroel. Is the way to get to Eretz Yisroel is not just in a vacuum. The way to get to Eretz Yisrael is even through the physical world that the Rebbeinu Shalom created, even the Chutz La'aretz world. That's a way to get to Eretz Yisrael. So he says, Nimsa she'ikar koyach Eretz Yisrael means the main way to get to Eretz Yisrael, which means Torah, an expressed version of Torah and Tefillah, strong in Eretz Yisrael. The way to do that is by first connecting to Torah and Tefillah in Chutz La'aretz. Through discovering and through bimakash yourself to Torah and Avodah, as it's hidden in Golas, that's the way to then easily, smoothly transition into Eretz Yisrael. So it's not so far. In other words, let's go back. So what the Rebbeinu Shalom is doing a chesed to us with this mitzvah is that he's giving us the koyach to conquer Eretz Yisrael smoothly and easily, despite the fact that in order to conquer Eretz Yisrael, you have to go through Gullus of the 70 nations. But instead of thinking of the Gullus of the 70 nations as a place that has no Torah to it and no tefillah to it, and you have to just deal with it, you know what I mean, and hold your breath, you know, and close your eyes and close your ears and so on, just to and do the best you can to just deal with all the 70 waves that are hitting on the head. Once that passes, then you'll be able to find Torah and Avodah. In such a that's a mahalach. You can do that, but that's going to be a very, very painful galus. But in order that it should be a gul barachamim, a redemption that's barachamim, that's a chesed, that's a smooth, and a process that's more that the transition is not as extreme. So this is the eitzah of having these stones, which is Torah and Avodah, the Jewish people, that's called Geula, but realizing that those stones are themselves written in the 70 languages. That in the world of Golus, which seems on the outside as barren of Torah and Avodah, over there is also Torah and Avodah. And in truth, the Torah that you'll discover in Eretz Yisroel and Chutz La'aretz is really just a more of an original version, or a Lashon Kodesh, like a version of the Torah that you already had in Chutz La'aretz. Practically speaking, so it means, like Rabbi Nachman said, it means that even in Golus, the more a person can orient themselves to think that everything that I'm doing, the Rebbeinu Shalom is there, Torah is there, Tefillah is there, every request that a person ever makes, all his shtadlus in this world, whether it might look like on the outside that it's the shtadlus to succeed in Olam Hazeh, but the truth is, as far as the neshama is concerned, all the shtadlus, even in this pre-Eretz Yisroel, pre-Geula world, all hishtadlus for the neshama's perspective is really all about one thing. It's like the famous clip from Shlomo Karbach. I'm not going to try to imitate it, but he was giving like for bragging, whatever you want to call it, a concert by like an Egged bus driver, I think you know what I'm talking about. And so he had a line over there. He's like, "Oh, you holy bus drivers," and he's like, he says something like, "When a yid asks you, like, how do I get to Tel Aviv or something? How do I, what's the route to Tel Aviv?" Really, what they're asking, like, what do I do with my life? It's like that. That's it's how Shlomo Karbach put it. But it's 100% true. Because it's not only for an Egged bus driver. It's every time. This is what it means to break through the gullet, to discover the Torah, finding the path of Eretz Yisroel in Chutz La'aretz means to orient ourselves to realize that everything that happens to us and everything that we're doing is rooted in Torah and Avodah. And every time we're asking for directions to get to Tel Aviv or whatever, we're really asking, like, how do I find the Rebbeinu Shalom, right? And everything that we're trying to conquer and accomplish in this world, really what the neshama really wants to conquer and accomplish is in Torah and Avodah. And it means more than that. It also means that everything that we're going through in life, just like Torah is the Gemara says that a person has to learn, when a person's learning, the Shechina Shorei Kenegda, the divine presence is with you. And whenever a person davens, you stand like you're standing before a king. It means the presence of Hashem is with you. It means that every single experience we have, even in Chutz La'aretz, a person has to let's put it this way, because deep down, behind every experience, even in Chutz La'aretz, and even in the 70 languages, deep down, it's an experience of Torah and Avodah. Because of that, because Torah and Avodah result in the Shekhinah being with you, it means the Shekhinah is with you in everything you experience in Galus too. And by even recognizing that and trying to attach yourself to that amunah, that the Rebbeinu Shalom is with you in everything that you do. Why? Because deep down, what you're really asking for is to get closer to God. And what you're really trying to accomplish in life is to get closer to God. So then all of a sudden, that itself gives you the path to Eretz Yisroel. That itself makes the process smoother and easier to actually discover what it is that you've been looking for the whole time. And to bring out the Torah and Avodah that's hidden over Galus, to be able to find the Eretz Yisrael from within Chutz La'aretz. Take a look at Maramukah number 5, just to end off. When I put this together, I didn't chop it, but it is the Yartzah of the Kamarna tonight. So this is a piece from the Kesem Ofer, one of the Kamarna Sfarim on Megillas Esther. So he has a piece over here. This is Yesod, he quotes this a lot in the Sfarim. Shem Yeida Adam, Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mistater Sham. So you said, going back from the Baal Shem already, that says to the Kamarna, if a person knew that the Rebbeinu Shalom is hidden in the gullus that you find yourself in. So it's not the pshat, again, it's not like in Eretz Yisroel, that's where Torah is. Torah means the Rebbeinu Shalom, that's where Tefillah is, that means the Rebbeinu Shalom. In Eretz Yisroel, that's where God is, Torah and Tefillah. In Chutz La'aretz, there is no the Rebbeinu Shalom here. There is no Torah, there is no Tefillah. I gotta just like handle it and deal with it until I get to Eretz Yisroel. No, that's exactly the opposite of what we're talking about. That makes the discovery of Eretz Yisrael very, very difficult. But if a person can remember that even in Chutz La'aretz, every single one of the 10 sentences that created the physical world is itself the Aseret HaDibros in hiding. It means that everything in life that we're doing is tefillah, and everything we're accomplishing in life is be'etzem Torah, and because it's Torah and tefillah, the Rabbanu Shalom is there and ever present in our experiences, then the more we can be conscious of that, the more it's Eis Golus. The more that itself will just bring us to Eretz Yisroel, just like Shlomo Melech, that he's able to sense where in Eretz Yisroel this piece of Chutz La'aretz is connected to. So said the Kamarna, if a person remembers that the Rabbanu Shalom is hidden in all the experiences of life, then Ein Zastar Klal. Then guess what? Then he's not hidden anymore. If a person knows with great faith that the general of the world, the Rabbanu Shalom, is in every movement of life, miyad yispar dekopoli oven, then immediately the exile itself, the 70 nations that are covering over that truth, their entire strength comes from the Jewish person like thinking that they're in control. By us forgetting the fact that there's Eretz Yisroel under Chutz La'aretz, that gives Chutz La'aretz dominance. But a person can remember that behind all things it's all Eretz Yisroel. And then Chutz La'aretz is redefined as what? As a path to Eretz Yisroel. As just a way in which we could get to a place on earth called Eretz Yisroel, where Eretz Yisroel is open. But everything is Eretz Yisrael. Then what? Then you spar the Kupali oven. Ke'en shel metzias bilti Hashem yisparach. There is no reality, true reality, other than the Rabbanu Shalom. Afil b'shas hadin. Even at a time of difficulty. U'be'im yeda sheluv v'shalom misat. And if a person, even at a time of difficulty, knows that the Rabbanu Shalom is there, is just hidden there, miyad nimtu kadin, and that itself has a way of sweetening the judgment. And the Gal Ha'ar, and the light will be able to be revealed. And that's the secret of these stones. Let's go back. The Ramban said, according to the Bahag, that this is counted as one of the 613. Why? Because although the act of erecting these stones was a one-time deal, but its effect is forever. What's the effect of these stones? So in Pnimius, the effect of these stones is that because those stones were erected, and it means that the language of the 70 of all of Torah was established as what? As something that's translated in all 70 languages. It means that forever, since that time, it means that all of Chutz La'aretz is now able to be redefined as just basically a derech to Eretz Yisrael. It's Torah in hiding, tefillah in hiding, and that's exactly how eventually we'll be able to get to Torah out of hiding and tefillah out of hiding. B'gula v'shalom v'amitis barachmim b'vias kol tzedek m'her v'imenu amen.